Okay, so if you remember, last thing we mentioned was the minimum, finding the minimum number in an array. So let's say you're given array A with, let's say I called this method as with an array for, let's say A is equal to something like 1, 5, 3, or let's say 6, 5, 3, 1, and then 4. So what's going to happen is that you'll call, let's say you have a find min method which is overloading the method you just wrote. It is going to basically use the same public int find min. However, it will only take an array as an integer array as an argument, and it will call its own method find min. However, it is going to basically search for the minimum element in array A that is starting with index 0. So you will search the whole array. That's the main idea. So what's going to happen with when you call find min A0, it is basically going to search for this starting with this point, and then if you look into the find min, it is going to check if this is the base case. If start is equal to A length minus 1. So your start is 0, length minus 1 is equal to, in this case, 4. So this is 0, this is 4. And it compares it's not equal, and then it goes into the else part, the recursive step. And it calls find min A start plus 1. So it's going to find the minimum that is going to start from this point. Right? So you will call in the second step the find min with this index. And then it is going to, based on whatever is returned there, it will decide which one is minimum. This one or the minimum of the remaining elements here. And to find the minimum among this list, it's going to call itself again, same thing here. It will find min A start plus 1. So in this case, it's going to search within this part. And then it will search within this part. And the last item, it is going to search in this part. So this is going to look for whether it is the minimum. So it's the base case. It will say return A start. So it is going to return, since it's the only element, it will return as the minimum of this part as 4. So once it is returned 4 as the minimum of that part, it is going to compare A start. In this case, it will be 1, right? It will compare 1 with this 4 and then return the minimum of those two. In which case, it is going to return for this part as 1. And then it is going to reiterate back for the previous call, and in which case it's going to compare the A start, which is this one, with the minimum of this part. In this case, 3 compared with 1. 1 will be the minimum of the returned value. And then it is going to then compare 1 with 5. Since 1 is smaller, it is going to return 1 out of this part. And then for the last iteration, it will return minimum of 6 and 1, and it will at the end return 1 as a result as the whole minimum value of the array. Okay? So basically this indicates the method for the searching for the minimum element in A that starts in this position. However, to start with the whole search, you can start with index 0, which will give you the minimum of the whole set. Okay? Any question? So again, you will have a recursion question in the exam if you don't understand some part or, you know, parts of the code, please ask. So let's say you would like to count the characters of a given string. Let's say I'd like to count, write a method that takes a string and a character, which counts the number of appearances of the character in the given string. So basically it returns an integer, the number of characters that's found in the string. For example, how many times you have you have C in cat. So you have the string cat and then you have the character C, and then it will give you equals 1. So write this recursively. Basically, you're going to have the method call, right? Public and then you're going to return an integer, obviously, right? Int, let's say number of times, and you're going to take a string str and then char c. So again, important, you have to identify what is it going to return. It will return an integer. You'll want to know the number of times you have seen the character. What it is going to take, it will take a string and a character. So you have to write this part correctly before, writing the rest in a correct fashion. So how can I write this? In a recursive fashion again. Obviously, if you have a for loop, you can start with the first instance, and then what is the iterative version of this code? How can I write it in an iterative fashion? So I will have int n equals 0, right? For int I equals 0, and then I less than str dot length, and then I plus plus. And what am I going to say? If str char at, right, I equals c, then you're going to say that, n needs to be incremented by 1. And then at the end, what you're going to do, you'll just return this n as a result. Okay? So basically, that will do the job in an iterative fashion. However, I'd like you to write it in a recursive fashion. So basically, in recursive implementation, what are you going to do? You will, let's say this is the string. You will check the first character, and then you will get the remaining as the recursive, element, and then see how many characters you have here. Let's say x number of characters here, and then 1 here. You'll just return x plus 1. Right? So how are you going to proceed with writing the recursive implementation of the same problem? So you'll basically, right, have the base case. What's the base case? So you won't proceed anymore. If you have a string that is of length 1, you cannot go further, right? So you have to have the base case. If str.length is equal to 1, then you're going to stop. How are you going to stop? And then you'll just say if str char at, since it is length 1, you only have position 0, is equal to c, return 1. Else, let's say I put brackets here, else return 0. So that I check the last element. If it is same with my character, I return 1. If it is different from the character, I return 0. Okay? Else, if it is more than 1 character length, if it is longer than that, what am I going to do? I will basically check the current character and then add 1 or 0 to that according to if it is matching with the C, and add the result with the recursive call. Basically, however are we going to write that part? So I will say if str char at 0 is equal to C, then I will say int, let's say I have an int n equals 0. If char at 0 is equal to C, I will say n equals 1. Otherwise, it will remain as 0. And then what am I going to do? Return n plus, I will call this number of times, And what am I going to call? Instead of str, I will use its substring, which will be str.substring. And then if I give one argument, it just gets the substring from starting from that position. So if I give what? 1, it will get the substring starting from that index. And then I will just give the C again as an argument. So basically what this does is that it adds either 1 or 0 according to the current leftmost character. Adds 1 if it is matching, adds 0 if it doesn't, to the number of times I find it in the remaining part of the substring. So it basically adds 1 or 0 and then gets the number of times you find it here. Okay? You could do that. Number of times, you'll just give the first string or the only string, the substring, and that will do the same thing, yeah. Any question? Okay. So I will stop here. We will have a quiz now. Okay.